Can you hear me on Facebook? Okay. About you guys over here on TikTok. You guys hear me? Okay, let's get started here. 1 second. As soon as Tacova comes online, we'll get going. Thank you guys for joining. Please share if you can. Let's see if we can get another good turnout. Last Sunday, I think we got over 6,000. That was a nice little turnout. So yeah, come on, let's join this and let's get going. We got some things to talk about today. So as soon as Dakota comes on, we will have the moderator. We'll be able to start this discussion, get this rolling. Everybody, Facebook, if you can hear me, please let me know. I've got you won't be able to hear me because I don't have the microphone on. 1 second, guys. 1 second here. Shoot. 1 second, Facebook. Okay, Facebook, you should be able to hear me now. You should be able to hear me. TikTok, you should be able to hear me too. Yep, you guys can hear me. Okay, awesome. Facebook, can you hear me? Anybody there? Can you give me a thumbs up or a heart, something to let me know that you guys can hear me? I'm going to assume that you can. There's only a couple on there. So Dakota, come online if you can, please, brother. Guys, we got some stuff to talk about today. It's going to be a good message, everybody. So as we sit here waiting for Dakota, I don't want to lose anybody. We're already up to 80 people, so I don't want to lose anybody. So my name's Tanoa Downing, and those of you who don't know, I'm a national civil rights advocate and litigator. I'm located right here in Washington, D.C., and we're in some really exciting time. National civil rights advocate and litigator. I'm located right here in Washington, D.C., and we're in some really exciting times right now because we have just built what is going to become the biggest civil rights case in American history. This is going to have impact to every single person within the jurisdiction of the United States, and it's a real honor to have been able to do this. I had no idea how big this was actually going to be when I first started 9 years ago. But you know, this is huge. This case is absolutely massive, and so it's exciting times because we've now made it all the way through all the court circuits, federal circuit, state courts, and we're now here in Washington D.C. Just on the other side of the Capitol, right here, is the Supreme Court building at 1 First Street, and you guys, my fight's against them. You guys know that. Anybody who follows me is fully aware of the fight that I'm in. We're going after that institution and the unlawful acts they've committed, the entire existence of their institution. But I want to start right now. I want to start with a message that's for a very specific group of people. And if this doesn't make sense to you, then just understand that the message probably isn't for you then. But you can listen along, and you can put a big smile on your face knowing how close we actually are to winning this. So this message is for a group of people, very, very specific group of people. You know who I am, and you know exactly what I'm capable of. So this is going to be your last warning. There won't be another one after this. I'm no longer going to ask criminals to stop committing crimes because you can't ask a scorpion to stop stinging you, right? It is what it is. If you want to be a criminal, continue doing what you're doing. If you don't, then you must contact me by Tuesday, October 22nd, by noon Eastern Standard Time. And if you have not, then we're going to go out and start collecting witnesses. All right. You know what we have. We know what we have against you. You know what we have against you. And I can assure you, I can guarantee you that by the time I finish, you're going to be begging for me to stop because you won't be able to live with the shame that's overcome you and the dishonor that's overcome you as a result of the greed and corruption and unlawful treasonous acts that you have committed against people of the United States and nearly destroyed the nation that you were implemented and instituted to protect and defend. And so here's the thing. I never, ever am going to let the public ever question who has the superior evidence, because remember, this right now is a matter. This situation is a matter of preponderance of the evidence. Okay, so there will never be a moment, not 1 second, that the public will ever question who has the superior evidence in this particular matter. Because for every public official that you bring that says that they didn't threaten or intimidate someone into securing a conviction of guilt or stealing a child from them, for every single one of them that you bring to say that they don't, I'm going to bring 1,000 witnesses that are going to say, yes, you did. There will never, ever, ever be 1 second from the beginning of this until the end of this that anyone will ever question who has the superior evidence. All right. So when this comes to preponderance of evidence, when it becomes a matter of who has superior evidence, I guarantee you that I have the superior evidence. So let me go ahead and lay it out for you real quick, whoever this audience might be. There are currently 70 million people that you have charged with or convicted of a crime illegally and unlawfully. Those are my witnesses, not yours. Okay. There's another 24 mothers and fathers that you've stolen children from. Those are my witnesses, not yours. Okay. And there's another 12 million children that you've robbed from their houses. And those are my witnesses, not yours. So the numbers are on my side. They're not on your side. They will never, ever, ever be on your side. So let me lay it out a little bit clearer if that wasn't clear enough for you, audience. If I were to call 100,000 witnesses, and you know the numbers that I just told you, right? 100 million, right? Roughly. If I call 100,000 witnesses, remember, I get to choose witnesses, not you, because the rules of evidentiary procedure says that every witness must be able to testify freely, fully, and truthfully to any matter pending before the court. I get to choose witnesses, not you. Okay. So if I call 100,000 witnesses and I give each one of them 15 minutes to speak, and we go 5 minutes break in between, we go 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and I guarantee you that these witnesses, they got a lot more to say than just 15 minutes, but we're just going to throw that number out. 15 minutes, 5 minute break in between. We go 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. That's 34 years worth of witness testimony, court. 34 years. All right. So I would say that you should probably reflect very, very quickly, because you got 2 days left before I start calling these witnesses, before I start collecting the evidence that I need to bring that shame down upon you. So you can either concede now and we can work together and you can maintain your honor, or you're going to spend the next 1,000 years of witness testimony and you won't get a goddamn thing else done. Okay. So let's just make sure that's clear, and let's go ahead and go into some questions. Dakota, you're online. Thank you, brother. Everybody, this is Dakota from Mind Evolution, my brother out of New Hampshire. Blessings.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Tanawa, for being here. Thank you for the service that you are doing for the people. And I am here to help you get these questions to you. And everyone who is in the comments, if you have questions that you would like to have answered, questions, and I'll read the questions to Tanawa, and he will answer those. Again, be specific about your questions and be realistic, please. All right, so I'm going through now and see if there's any questions, Tanawa, and I'll be reading it off.
Okay, so while he's looking through coming up with this first question, go ahead and let me go ahead and tell you guys what we've done now, how we built this case. So the issue is not, it's not about prisoners, right? And it's not about CPS. The issue is whether or not a state has the authority to be able to oversee a disposition of a dispute that it itself is the causing. It's as simple as that. And the answer is no. So, when a state chooses to enact its own alternative legislation and then substitutes that legislation for the provisions that guarantees the Constitution, that would be an unconstitutional act, right? The Constitution provides the overarching requirements that all states must follow. And therefore, when a state enacts its own alternative legislation that deprives, diminishes, or abridges those guarantees that are contained within the Constitution of the United States of America, that would be an unconstitutional law, period. So then when the state does enact that law, and then it directs its agents, being a prosecuting attorney, being CPS, being a judge, directs its agents to rely upon that inferior state statute to deprive the people of the United States of the very rights that are guaranteed to them, codified within the Constitution of the United States, that would be a crime. It's called deprivation of rights under color of law, which is Title 28, subsection 242, which states any person who, under the color of any state statute, ordinance, custom, or regulation, deprives any person of any rights secured by the Constitution commits that crime. So we have a pretty significant issue here that derives from a number of different laws that have been enacted by the states. But where do the states get the authority to be able to create those unconstitutional or oppressive laws? Well, they got the authority supposedly from the United States Supreme Court, because ever since that court has been in existence, it's been undermining the laws of the United States, been undermining the Constitution, because if the Constitution got its way, they would all be out of job, because the Constitution has declared all men to be free, and yet they work for an institution that is in the business of enslaving. So we've got an institution that is in direct opposition with the very laws and principles that we Americans believe in and have established at our foundation, or we thought. But instead of what actually happened was that of the first 28 justices that served on the United States Supreme Court, 22 of them owned their own slaves. So what they did was they didn't want the laws that set free because they believed in enslavement. They were in the business of enslavement because these men wanted the slavery institution to continue. And so what they did was they removed the Constitution from the foundation and they placed what's called judge-made rulings at the foundation. And then they called those rulings law, case law. Well, unfortunately for the judicial branch, it has no authority to be able to create law because all law must be created by the legislative branch according with Article 1, Clause 1 of the United States Constitution. All legislative power is vested in Congress of the United States, consisting of a Senate and House of Representatives. So when the judicial branch creates law, right, rulings that it calls law, and then it places that at the foundation, well, that's unconstitutional because it's a separation of powers of issue. The judges do not have authority to legislate. They don't have the authority to legislate the bench. And as a result, what they took, placed at the bottom, and told all the judges and all the states to follow is what's called administrative law because it's made by the administrative branch, the judicial branch. Well, the judicial branch has no authority to be able to create law. So as a result, when they took the case law, they placed it at the foundation. They said, that's what we're going to follow from here on out. Not the Constitution of the United States, but the case law through what they call stare decisis. Well, unfortunately, everything that they produce is unconstitutional because it derives from an unconstitutional decision made by a court or one of the branches of government that has no authority to be able to create law. So we've got this massive system that's been built completely upside down where the Constitution is not the foundation, but instead judge-made rulings is the foundation. And what you got to understand is that constitutionalism is based upon suffrage, right? It requires an authentic act of the people to make a change to the Constitution, to alter, amend, or destroy it. So, if the Constitution says in Article 5 that first it must pass by 2/3 both House and Senate vote, and then it must go out to the states, proposed amendments must go out to the states for ratification, and once 3/4 of the states vote through suffrage, then it becomes part of the Constitution, all intents and purposes. Well, that's the way we got to change it. There's no other way to do it. So when the judicial branch says, yeah, well, we can do it because we have the authority to be able to create case law, place it at the foundation. Well, case law, unfortunately, is the exact opposite of constitutionalism. Constitutionalism is a majority, makes a decision through an act of suffrage to change. However, case law is one single judge imposing his will upon the rest of the nation, which is the exact opposite of constitutionalism, right? So, the problem today is when you go into a courtroom, you say your rights have been violated. Where does that judge go to determine whether or not your rights have been violated? Do they go to the Constitution, the object of which their fidelity is bound by oath or affirmation, or do they go to case law? Well, they obviously go to case law because they've been directed to rely upon the judicial decisions made by the branch of government that has no authority to be able to create law. And so now we have them going to not the object of which their fidelity is bound, but instead to the flawed decision of the man that came before him, or the flawed decision of the man that came before him. So when we have judges from the very beginning that made statements such as blacks are not people, right, or slaves are private property protected by the Constitution, or that the Bill of Rights is not a restriction against the states, that states can do whatever they want, they don't have to comply with the Bill of Rights. These are rulings made by the judicial branch. These are actual, legitimate, real rulings. They're not valid, made by owners of slaves that wanted to perpetuate the slavery institution. And then we wonder why slavery still exists today in the form of a punishment for crime, because this institution is not what we think it is. And so I'm going after them, and the case that we built is dealing with them. And we've, like I said in the beginning, we've got 100 million witnesses that are on my side, and the numbers are overwhelmingly against them. So they don't have a whole lot of choice here, because the preponderance of the evidence is going to go very, very badly against them and in my favor. And so I don't know how many of these stories of the lives that they've destroyed, or the innocents that they robbed, or the people that they murdered. I don't know how many of these stories they're going to be able to get through before they say enough. So, we can start calling these witnesses. I can start bringing these stories in. I'm more than happy to do it. I've got hundreds of thousands already, but we're going to have millions. So, it's up to them because truth will always lie somewhere between two stories. But when you suppress one side from telling theirs because you have a desire to advance your own story, because you've taken a side and decided that that's the story you want to tell, well, you can't say that truth's been ascertained or just been administered, because the truth's going to lie somewhere between those two stories. I have the right to tell my story. She has the right to tell her story. He has the right to tell his story. And we're going to start telling those, court. And you can either concede, or you're going to sit and listen to every single one of them. I promise you. All right. Thank you.
Awesome. Not too many that have been coming through so far. It's just mostly comments talking back and
All right.
um,
Well, let me what- so we wanted to talk about the next step, the plan on the next step here, because I'd love to explain a little bit more about the use of the veterans, right? The use of the veterans, the calling up of the military, the veteran group. So if we could, let's if there's not any questions, let's hit that. I'd love to talk about that. I'd love to explain, what God is giving me as to why we're doing that and how it's going to happen.
absolutely. I think that would be a valid point. And also too, I think where that power also lies is we need to address the homeless veterans as well.
Yeah,
Uh, they stand and how they can come in and support this issue.
yeah, yeah. So we've got veterans all across the country. People that have served in the military, that have honorably served their country, just like I have, and and we've been trained in certain things. We've been trained to believe in America, and I firmly believe that you don't learn how beautiful your country is until you have the opportunity to serve it in one capacity or another. And I'm not saying military, but I think that we all as a part of our lives, we all should step up and serve this country, because you learn how amazing and incredible this country is by the service that you provide to it. And but one thing that we need to remember is that our nation, our country, is nothing more than an aggregate of the people. So it's getting to know the people, falling in love with them, that's going to truly make you fall in love with this nation. And if you don't get to know the people, the whole dynamics of the people, because there's lots of different types of people across the country. Trust me, I've been across it 18 times the last 16 months meeting you. And but that's what makes this country amazing. That's what makes this country beautiful. Because what makes us great is our ability to communicate. We can debate on issue. We can come up with the best solution because of tolerance, because of that diversity, and that's what makes us great. But today we don't have that, because we have one side that's only telling their side of the story, and it's preventing the other side from telling theirs. And unfortunately, there is a better way, right? There is a different and a correct way, and that correct way is not being known because we've got one side that's refusing to acknowledge or listen to the other side. And so, we need to go back to our roots. We need to remember that what makes us great is our ability to speak, our ability to be able to debate on an issue, come up with the best solution. Just like I said the other day or the other night, the fact that nobody's out here debating me is great. That's because they're scared to debate this issue. But I would welcome any one of them to come out, any judge, any congressman or senator. If they want to debate me on this issue, come on, come and debate me. Because if I'm wrong, then come and prove that I'm wrong. But if you won't, then that means that I'm controlling the narrative, and I'm going to continue to control the narrative because I know I'm right and they know I'm right. And that's why they won't come out here and debate this issue, is because they know that I'm right. So, I serve my country, and I can say that I have faithfully. It's been my life's honor to be able to serve this country my entire life. My whole entire working life, I've done nothing but serve this country. I did it in my ignorance, wrong for a few years, but I've been woken to my senses, and I'm glad and very proud to be brought back to the right side, the side that I always belonged on, and I'm very happy to be here on the right side, fighting for all of you where I should. And I want to remind all of these other politicians that it's an honor to serve the people. It's not a right. And if you're going to abuse it, then you have no right to be a leader. You have no right to do that. But what we have to do and what we have to remember is that for you that are former military veterans or even active duty, the problem with the active duty is that you're still under the control of someone who is not acting constitutionally, who I've already brought to their attention, and they are refusing to recognize the force of the body of law as governing the nation. So, but the good news is that you have each person has an independent right of conscience to be able to make the right decision. Nobody can make you break the law, right? They can order you, but you have a choice. You have a choice that you can make. You can choose to do the right thing, or you can choose to follow an unlawful law. And so each one of these orders that you receive, you need to make your own independent decision. You need to decide, is that the right thing to do? Is that within my authority? Is that within my scope of duties? And if it's not, then you do have the absolute right of conscience to be able to say, no, it's not. I'm not going to follow something that's not right. If it's not within your heart, if your heart doesn't feel that it's correct, don't do it. But for all you veterans out there, the thing about the veterans is this, okay? So when you receive an honorable discharge, an RER1 discharge is what it's called. That means that you're fully reinstatable. You can be brought back into active service at any point in time. You can be recalled back in to active service at any point in time, which means that your oath is perpetual. It is sustaining, and it is always a self-executing oath. So when you take an oath, it says that I will protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Then that means that when you encounter someone that's warned against the Constitution, if that oath is impressed upon your heart and you feel that you have a duty and obligation to deal with the oppressive acts, the illegal acts, or the destruction or the warning against the Constitution of the United States, you absolutely have the right, because you have the duty to do something about it. Right? That oath is self-executing. You can recall yourself at any point in time. And remember, the only thing that gives our public officials the right to be able to do anything is that oath themselves. A judge, the oath is all that gives them the right to be able to be a judge. An FBI agent, the only thing that gives them the right is their oath. So remember the power of the oath. You each have the oath that you've taken. You have the right to be able to self-execute that oath and call yourself back into active service in order to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against those that are warned against it domestically. You have that right. You have that authority. Okay, so I want to make sure that all of you understand that that is something that you can do. You have the authority to do that. And so, as a veteran, when you encounter someone that's warned against the Constitution, or you encounter these acts of criminalization that's against the Constitution of the United States, then you can make a decision to step up. And as a result, remember that the executive branch is there to enforce the laws of the United States. Their role is to enforce. So when you do call yourself in through self-execution of the oath, then you are serving as federal law enforcement, which means that you can immediately step into the role of collecting and maintaining custody of the evidence that we have across the country. I said at the very beginning, we have 70 million witnesses across the country right now, 70 million witnesses. I need their testimony. I need their written evidence, right? We have 24 million children or 24 million parents who have had their children robbed. I need that evidence. I need that written testimony from them, right? We have 12 million children across this country. I need their written testimony. And so that's more than I can personally do myself. And as a result, I need a whole bunch of individuals that are able to serve in a law enforcement capacity to receive that evidence from the victims, hold it in their custody, maintain its protection and the integrity of that evidence until such time as we can return here and get it to the court so we can overcome this last obstacle. Now, I'm not saying that we need to get 100 million affidavits. I said that we're going to have 500,000. That's the number I'm shooting for. But I did say if that's not going to be enough, then we'll go back and we'll get 10 million. But what I need is the support from all of you, brothers and sisters, who served with me honorably to execute that honor once again. I need you to come back in. I need you, if it's on your heart, to take action to collect this evidence of the treasonous acts against those that are warning against the Constitution as of this moment. I need you guys to come in. I need your support. I need your help, because this is way too big of a task for me to be able to do on my own. Now, what you got to understand is that the system is fully aware that you cannot mail evidence. It must be collected in person. And let me give you a quick example. So there's FBI all across the country, federal law enforcement agents all across the country, right? They have branches in every single major city, and they have that because they have to collect the evidence in person. So when you have something happen to you, you don't just go and make a phone call. No, they have to send an agent to you, right, to collect the information from you, right, because that information is evidence. And then that officer, the federal law enforcement officer, has to maintain that evidence in his possession. He can't take it to a bank. It's not a notary that collects it. No, it's an agent that's with the authority to be able to receive this evidence, possess it, maintain it in their custody, and deliver it into the legal proceeding that needs to occur. That's what I need. I need a whole bunch of officers that are immediately going to be able to step up, execute their oath, and act as a federal law enforcement officer with the authority to be able to take possession of that evidence from the victim, maintain it in their custody, and then get it all back here to me in Washington, D.C. so we together can go and deliver this final blow to the court. Okay? So again, the FBI, they're fully aware that they have to be present. That's why they have presence all across the country. But one thing that you need to understand is that when it comes to a civil right, When it comes to a civil right, do they send officers out to speak with you? No, no. They send you to a website and tell you to fill out a complaint on a website, right? And maybe they'll call you back at some point in time. How many of you actually got a phone call back from the complaint that you filed on the FBI's website for a civil rights complaint? The reason why is because that's not valid evidence, right? It's not valid evidence until it goes into custody of someone with the authority to be able to receive it, manage it, maintain its custody and integrity, and deliver it into the legal proceeding. So when you do file your complaint through the online form for the civil rights division of the FBI, just right down the road from here, when you do that, you don't get a call back because that's not valid evidence as far as they are concerned. They aren't going to let you have access to their agents. And so, like even here, if you were to go to the FBI, you could meet with an FBI field agent out at the office, but he's not a civil rights agent. You have no access to the civil rights group, because the civil rights group, you can only get in by invitation, right? So they know these things. They lock down the doors. They keep you from access to their agents because they know that the moment that they receive evidence from in a valid form, they must take action. So they do everything in their power to keep it from having to take action, because civil rights cases, they don't want it to happen. They don't want to have to do anything about it. They don't want to know about it. They don't want to hear about it, right? Because once they hear about it, they have an obligation to take action. And so we want to make sure that we follow the proper rules, right? Because we can see what they do, and now we can set up and establish our own group that can do the exact same thing. All you veterans, you all have the authority to step up and enforce the laws of the United States by your oath, right? I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. If there is treasonous acts being committed by our own government, right, against the Constitution of the United States, you have the authority to step up, and not only the authority, but you actually truly have a duty. And if it's upon your heart, then I would say, please come and help me, because I need help. I need help going out to these victims. I need help getting these affidavits from them, and I need help maintaining them in a manner in which we could protect the integrity of that evidence until such time as we can deliver it to legal proceedings. So that's what we're doing. And we need, first off, we need officers within every single state. I need to know that we have a contact within every single state, and then that state we can slowly start building the group within. But we need to know that we have a place that we can get the evidence to. We can keep it in a secure location, just like the FBI would. We need to set up a parallel institution that's doing the same as the institution that is now set up, that is acting illegally and unconstitutionally. It's refusing to recognize and enforce the body of laws, and that are acting in crimes against the people of the United States. We need to set up a similar institution that's parallel to it. We are not asking for any violence. We are not asking for anyone to go out and make arrests. All that we're saying is that we want to go out and collect the evidence of the treasonous acts being committed by that government, and we want to deliver it to the authorities, right? Because the authorities, once delivered, they will have to take action because they will have heard this. So this is a big deal, and it's a big endeavor. But when God comes into action, I don't think he does anything all that small. So, when I realized this is the next step from our discussions, I think I had to spend about a day and a half saying, I don't want to do that, but we can do it. We can do this. And so I know it's on all of your heart that there's something wrong here in this country. And so let's take it upon ourselves. Let's call ourselves back into active service on behalf of the people of the United States to defend this country. And let's fix it. Let's fix it in a very, very peaceful manner. Thank you.
Okay. I have a question from Faceless American. He says, what's the constitutional standing on the
On the what?
What's the constitutional standing on the IRS?
Constitutionally, so the IRS isn't valid. First off, it's not a government. It's not a government agency. It was established by so the IRS and the Treasury are all parts of what's known as the fiduciary, right, or the Fed. They were the fiduciary agent that was created in order to put our country into bankruptcy. So they became the fiduciary agent on behalf of the banks, right, that put us into bankruptcy and thus collateralized the people of the United States. But constitutionally, the IRS is not valid, and the biggest reason why the IRS and the tax code is not valid. And the Supreme Court has already made this decision. The fact that we still pay taxes on a voluntary system, the fact that they're incriminating based upon it is absolutely mind-boggling, because the Supreme Court has already made the decision that the tax code is not valid. And the reason why is because we live in an egalitarianism form of government, which is the belief that all laws must apply equally to every single person. Any law that does not apply equally to every single person is not a legitimate law, right? And therefore, because of its illegitimacy, that means that it's not valid. So, when you create a law that permits the executive branch to decide who gets a certain amount of taxing and who does not, well, that's not valid, because the Constitution says that all tax authority, all authority to be able to create debt against the people must come from the legislative branch. So when the executive branch controls the IRS and the executive branch makes a decision about who owes money and who does not, that would be an unconstitutional separation of powers issue. All debt must originate from within the legislative branch, not the executive branch. The executive branch has no authority to create a debt against the people, because all debt against the people must come from the legislative branch, because the legislative branch creates the law, and the law applies equally amongst all people. When you have the executive branch decide that, hey, we're going to go ahead and do it based upon our policy, we're going to go ahead and do it based upon, what they do is they say, okay, I can now use this as leverage in an act of oppression. I can use this as a weapon against my opposition. So when the executive branch says, okay, this guy is going to pay 2% of his in taxes, this guy's going to pay 5% in taxes, this person's going to pay 18% in taxes, and this guy over here, he's going to pay 30% in taxes. Well, that's now a weapon that the law is being used as, right? And so anytime you have a law that does not apply equally amongst all members of our society, then what happens is that it becomes a weapon. And that's what the IRS code is. That's what the tax code absolutely is. It's used all the time in order to incentivize certain people to support a parties, to, investments or other different things. It's not valid. It has no validity whatsoever. The Supreme Court has already made that decision. And, part of what I'm doing is coming in and getting rid of it, because, once again, the executive branch has no authority to act outside of its scope of authority within the Constitution. The hermetically sealed division and separation of powers, they're clearly operating outside of it. We can see that from Chevron and these other things. But at the end of the day, the executive branch has no authority to create a debt against the people. No authority, because it must come from the law. And the legislative branch did not create it. This is tax code, right? Code. It's not tax law, it's code. And so, what we're doing is we're going back to the beginning. I want the foundation to be put back in place, because all this bullshit that they built in bureaucracy, right, by overstepping each one of the separation of powers, by the legislative branch deciding that they can create law based upon a judge telling them that they can breach the Constitution, or the judicial branch saying, hey, we decide what the law is, not anyone else, or the executive branch saying, oh, well, that's ambiguous, I don't have to do that, right? We have major issues across the country by all three branches of government that's doing all kinds of things outside of their lawful authority. And so what I'm saying is, the shit that you built unlawfully, the shit that you have here in place right now, all of this, it's all bullshit. It's not fucking real. It's not lawful. Get rid of it, because I'll be damned if the people of the United States are going to continue to be punished and pay for, the unlawful and fraudulent and illegal acts committed by these guys. Today, what they want to say to us is they want to say, oh, it's too big of a deal. They all know that this is true. That's why they're silent on this issue. That's why no one will come out here and debate me. I've been walking around this city for months now, talking about the criminal acts of this institution and the institution behind it. I bet. But how many of these people will actually come out and debate me on this issue? Not one of them, because they all know that I'm fucking right. Every single one of them know that I'm right, right? And who's going to come and debate someone who's right? And they know that they're wrong. They're going to look like fools. So, again, I'm out here. I'm controlling the narrative. I'm telling people the truth because I know the truth. I'm not afraid of it. I know the law. I know what the law says. And I'm going to stand up for the law. And when I do, these people over here, they're going to look like fools, right? And especially if they attempt to go face to face with me, if they even think that they're gonna vote at all, well, even in an hour of testimony against me, they're crazy, man. They're absolutely nuts, because the whole country is going to look and see exactly how foolish they actually are, because there's nothing that they've done lawfully. And so what they do today is they say, oh, this is too big of a deal to fix. It's too big. Well, I don't care how big it is. Wrong is wrong, and what you're doing is wrong. And more importantly, you guys did this. You guys got us into this mess, not the people. I'll be damned if the people are going to continue to pay for your incompetence or for your illegal acts. So no, don't tell me this is too big of a deal. Fix the fucking problem that you made, government. Hope that answered your question, brother. Hope that answered your question. Thank you.
Absolutely. So we have now. I can't read their name, but a person asked, "What if it is public knowledge through congressional contract?"
Was it public knowledge through what? Commercial contract? Is that what you said?
Congressional contracts.
Public knowledge through congressional contracts. I'm not sure what the question is. I'm sorry. Remember, so if you could clarify on that question, whoever that was that asked that question, that would be awesome. Then Dakota could come back and maybe redirect me if I'm going too far off right here. But and you guys, I can't see. I'm blind as a bat. I take my glass off because they're glare and they make my face look black. So anyway, I can't see. So I'm sorry, Dakota. You got to butt in if I get too far off topic. But so anyway, whoever wrote that question, please clarify if you can. But the thing about it is that remember, we are in contract law right now. We're under the Admiralty law. We all know that because of the fringe that's around the flag. I talked about it. I think I talked about it just a couple nights ago. You know, when we place the fringe around a flag, we know what that means. We're in an Admiralty jurisdiction. Remember, Admiralty jurisdiction is simply contract law. That's why everything that we do is a contract, right? They keep talking about contract. Well, like I said, I think in my Eye of the Storm interview, which was an excellent interview that I did back, I believe, in March of this last year. It's on Rumble. Incredible interview. I would highly recommend, if you guys got a little bit of time, go listen to it. It's one of my favorites that I've done. But on that particular interview, you know, I pointed out the fact that honestly, I would rather have it be contract law, because contract law is easy, guys. It's simple, right? I mean, you know, when we go to common law, that's a lot harder, because common law, you know, requires a much more broader range of knowledge. But contract law, contract's simple. If the way in which the contract is formed is illegal, then the contract formed is illegal, period, right? Show me where in the four corners of this contract it says that you can do something or forbear from doing something. And if it does not, I win, right? So, you know, since we're under Admiralty law, I'm good with Admiralty. In fact, I'm great with Admiralty law, because it's a very, very simple situation. Show me where in the four corners of the Constitution of the United States it says that an indictment by a grand jury is not needed before holding someone over for a capital or infamous crime. No public official will be able to show me that. None. Great, I win. It's simple contract law, guys. But more importantly, right, if the state has no authority to be able to create a law that said that they could charge by information, not by indictment, because the judge told them that they could, once again, show me where in the four corners of the Constitution of the United States of America it says that you don't have to have an indictment by a grand jury in the adjudication of an infamous crime. State, they can't do it, right? Which means that the law that was created was unconstitutional because it's in violation of the Constitution, which means that every conviction that relied upon, or every contract that relied upon the establishment through that unconstitutional law, must also be removed. So I don't have to worry about defending all these millions of people that have contracts against the states for criminal acts. I don't have to worry about all them, because if I can destroy the one law that sits in the state that permitted, or that was established, that all of those contracts are based upon, they don't exist. They're all void, because they're all rendered void because of the voiding of the statute. So here's the issue, right? If the Constitution of the United States, Clause 1 of Amendment 5, if it says no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on presentment or indictment of a grand jury, as it does, then that's pretty clear. You got to have an indictment by a grand jury before arresting someone or holding them over for a capital or infamous crime. So when the state of Washington created a provision in its inferior constitution that says no grand jury shall be joined or summoned in any county, that particular provision functions directly to the contrary of the United States Constitution. So show me where in the four corners of the Constitution, state of Washington, it permits you to establish that particular provision in your Constitution. They can't do it. And as a result, that provision is unconstitutional, which means that there isn't a single criminal judgment that has been put into place in the history of the state of Washington ever since the establishment of that provision that is constitutional. So when I go and I destroy, or render void the unconstitutional provision of the state, that renders void all of the judgments. So I don't have to worry about fighting for each one of these. I don't have to worry about the individual cases or the individual arguments. I'm going to go to the heart of the issue, and that is, state, did you have the authority to do it? The answer is no. The answer is no. That's why there's 700,000 people across America today that are currently imprisoned illegally and unconstitutionally, because the states didn't follow the proper procedures of process established and codified clearly in the Constitution of the United States in the adjudication of crime. Those brothers and sisters are currently enslaved in institutions where the state is profiting off their involuntary servitude. That's a disgusting situation, right? So then these states, they say, oh, well, if we don't do it this way, if we did a grand jury, then it would clog up the system. It would do this bullshit, okay? What it would do is it would require you to actually find alternative methods of dealing with issues, state, rather than locking people up in prisons and forcing them into involuntary servitude so you could profit off the work of the most vulnerable in our society, right? Look at some alternatives. Is the best thing to do is to just simply go and arrest someone, throw them into a steel box so that you could profit off of their labor? Or is it, maybe I could educate this person, right? Maybe I could help this person out. Maybe I could help him get a house, or maybe I could stop stealing from him, you fucking assholes, right? So at the end of the day, right, this is contract law, and I'm good with contract law, because in contract law, these guys, they don't stand a chance. I know the contract. You know the contract. The contract's 4 pages. It's right across the street here. The Constitution of the United States is 4 pages. It's pretty damn easy, right? I can recite those 4 pages in my sleep. I don't have to worry about the 800 billion pages of statutes that these assholes created, because all that is not the Constitution, and that means it's unconstitutional. So we got the contract. I can recite the contract. Anything that's not in that contract is void, not valid. It's bullshit. Thank you.
All right. Next question, Tenowa. I'm just Barb asked, can you take a case to the Supreme Court?
Yeah, what?
Can you take a case to the Supreme Court?
So can I personally, or can anybody?
I'm assuming that she's asking, can anybody?
Yeah. Okay. So the answer is absolutely. So here's the thing, right? The Supreme Court of the United States has the obligation to hear us. Because the Constitution's created the obligation. So yeah, that court, it has always had. See, we have always had the right to have our cases heard. Always. Right? Always, because Article 3 of the United States Constitution says, in all cases in which a state shall be party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. You see, we were always meant to be heard by that court. We were meant to be heard. But that court has denied its obligation, failed to fulfill its obligation, because it wants to be a court of last resort, because it doesn't want to have to hear the people. I mean, in the history of this court, how many times have they made decisions that's outside of the best financial interests of the government, or in the best financial interests of business, right? How many times do they actually make decisions that are on the people's behalf, right? I mean, I could think of maybe 3 times tops. Brown versus Board of Education, and I mean, really, they don't make decisions. In fact, there was a period of time between 1860 and I believe 1920 where there was only one justice in that whole period of time. The whole period of time, through the Waite Court, through the Taft Court, the one justice, John Marshall Harlan, who ever sided with the interests of the people or the best interest of a prisoner or a slave. One justice in that whole period of time. Every other justice consistently made decisions that was in the best interest of business, best interest of government, right? Because they are government, right? So, they're anti the people because they have a business. And that's what I'm trying to get us all to understand, is that when we run government as though it's a business, then we're going to make decisions that's going to be in the best fiscal interest of the country, as opposed to what's in the best societal interest of the country. And we're going to create laws that are going to be specifically focused on how we can generate revenue. And the way that government generates revenue is it's expensive to citizenry. So they don't want to do things that are in the best interest of people, because that costs the business money. So we need to get our government out of the business mentality and understand that government, you're not a business. This isn't a business, because if it were, then you guys would be paying us, right? Because you would be making money, which you do, right? but you then rob from us in order to perpetuate your business. So, look at how much growth this business has had. I mean, look at what areas and sectors they've gotten themselves involved in, and look at how, the sole purpose, just like the other night when on the last slide that I did, there were three reasons why our government was established. Three things that they had to protect, and only three things: life, liberty, and environment for us to be happy, right? Those are the only three jobs that this government was instituted to protect. Those are the only three things that they had to protect. And yet they've enslaved us to financial institutions, right? They've enslaved us through criminality, right? They've murdered 18% of the people that are on death row, and they consistently murder us, out on the streets by a number of different ways. I mean, and then at the end of the day, how many of you are actually finding happiness, right? How many of you are happy in the life that you have? This government has absolutely failed us miserably in the three things that they were instituted to do. So we need them to understand that this isn't a fucking business, right? You're not running a business because you don't make a product, government, right? You don't generate revenue, right? And you don't pay liabilities. This is not a business, and we need you to get out of the business, get there so that you can actually fulfill the purpose in which you were created, and that's to help the people and protect the people, not oppress them. So, we need a complete about face of this government at this point in time. I mean, we got to. So the answer is that anybody can bring a case to the United States Supreme Court. Now there are a few different requirements that has to happen, because words are very important, right? Words are very important that you all need to understand. If you want to sue, right? If you want to sue, you must first be sui juris, right? That's where that word comes from. To sue, you must be sui juris. Now, sui juris means of one's own volition, meaning that you can enter into contracts of your own volition. I am sui juris, right? I've gone way out of my way to make sure that I don't hold contracts with states and agents. I have no driver's license. I have no job. I have no bank account. I have no wife. I have no kids. I have all of these things that make life easy for all of you. I don't have because I want to be able to enter into a contract of my own volition. I cannot breach one contract in order to negotiate the terms of another contract, because that would make both contracts illegal and unconstitutional. So I can walk into the Supreme Court of the United States as a sui juris person, as a litigator that is sui juris, and I can negotiate the terms of my own contract, because there is no contracts that I would breach in order to do so. So I can invoke my right, because there is no state that can claim jurisdiction over me, because I don't live in a state. I have no license. I have no job. I have no bank account. Nothing that would attach me to a state through a contractual obligation do I have. And it's a very difficult thing for me to do to live this way, but it is what it is. This is what I have to do to be able to serve all of you, and to be able to fulfill the obligations that I have to the oath and to my country and to my brothers and sisters there. So, I can walk to the Supreme Court. I can invoke my right to Article 3, act as a sui juris litigant, suing on behalf of the people of the United States for the crimes being committed. And there doesn't have to be a solicitor general there, or a prosecutor there, or anyone else there to negotiate the terms on my behalf, because I can negotiate the terms on my own, because I wouldn't be breaching any contracts in order to negotiate and enter into that contract. So sui juris means of one's own volition. I can enter into any contract that I want of my own volition, because I would not have to breach one contract to enter into another. There's other things that I would tell you that I can't, because it's part of our legal strategy here. But some of the things that bind you to contracts would be a social security number, would be a birth certificate. So there's a lot of different things that you have to eliminate or not have, or so you see. I'm in a very, very unique position because of the things that God has led me to do, and the things that have happened to me throughout my life that have put me in this position that I can walk in and do this. I can negotiate this contract on behalf of the people of the United States for the terms of this new contract. The new contract's going to be, I want the old one put back into place. Get rid of all your shit, all the bullshit you put into place, all the lies. Let's put what's supposed to be there down at the bottom. And before you guys call something imperfect, before you say that the law is not perfect, the only suggestion I have is, let's try to use it the way it was designed to be used, the way that you have never, ever, ever in 243 years ever used it. And let's try to use it the way it was designed to be used. Don't call it imperfect, because you're too lazy, you're too incompetent to be able to follow the rules. Okay?
All right. So we have another question from let me see if I can the name is I can't really read their name, but the question is, it's been so many years people have tried to stop court corruption. Do you see change coming? If so, why?
Yeah, yeah. So I do, I do, and all that I can do is 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 let my faith lead me, right? So I wouldn't be out here right now, you know. I don't have a life anymore. There's things that I want. I want a wife and I want kids and I want a house and car. I want those things because that's I'm a man. I want to have someone in my life, but I can't because I've accepted a certain obligation, and my faith is leading me to do things that are contrary to what I personally would want to do in my own life. Like I said, this ring that I have on my finger, this ring I got from my 5-year-old daughters 9 years ago when my wife pawned my ex-wife pawned my wedding ring, because they wanted me to be married to God from now on. And so they went out and they bought me this ring. I wear it on my right hand as opposed to my left because my daughters wanted me to be married to God. This is a lonely life that I'm in. So the thing is that the life that I'm living, the things that I do, I don't do this because I'm making millions of dollars. Guys, I'm staying in a hostel. I don't have a car. I ride a bus. I mean, I'm doing this because my faith is telling me with all my heart and all my strength that we got this. That we got this. You see, no one would do the things that I'm doing without faith, right? If I didn't believe in this, I wouldn't be out doing it. I would be out living a life and being a normal person, guys. I would not be here doing these things. So, all that I can say is that is that I know that a lot of people are going to have a very, very difficult time believing, right? Because faith is a very, very difficult thing to have. It's a very, very difficult thing for people to have, especially over time when they've seen their faith consistently be undermined, right? But the only thing I got to say is this: what if, right? What if I can do this, right? I mean, the laws are on our side. I'm speaking the laws. You guys can hear the things I'm saying. You can know that what I'm saying is the truth. The court knows that this is the truth. We got Justice Gorsuch going around the country talking about how I'm correct and how I'm right. All right. So the laws are on our side. Now, whether or not you believe that this would ever actually happen, all I got to say is what if? What if? What if all it took was your faith? What if all it took was you sharing one video, right? And that one video is gonna go to the right person, one person that we need to actually hear this. That's going to make this happen. I would not be out here doing this if my faith weren't strong enough to compel me to do it. Every single day I'm here because I believe in this, because I know without any doubt in my heart that this is going to happen. And if it doesn't, I will gladly accept being a fool. But as I've said before, I would much rather be a fool that's full of hope than a fool that accepts status quo and mediocrity. I believe in America, and I know that you guys do too. I know that you believe that we're better than this. I believe in that institution across the street there. I believe that they're honorable and that they've been led astray. I believe we all have been led astray, right, by our own ignorance. But I also believe in the people of the United States, because we have always and we will always choose to do right when shown that what we're doing is wrong. America has made a lot of mistakes, but I'm proud to know that we have resolved to learn from each of them in order to be better and stronger as a result of them. So we now stand at this precipice of yet another major crossroads for our country. We can either choose the path of our ancestors, the path that we've been on, or we can choose a different path of our own. And I believe with all my heart that we're about to choose a different path. We're not going to continue down this path of enslavement. We're going to actually take the steps toward making sure that all men are finally, for the first time in the history of our country, free. And that's what I'm out here doing. That's what I'm fighting for. I only ask, believe one more time. Find the ability to trust one more time. Give me one last chance. I don't need much time, but I believe in it. I believe in what I'm doing, and God would not have me out here doing what I'm doing. He wouldn't have protected me the way He's protected me. He wouldn't have led me to do the things I've done to bring this house of cards to the point that it's at right now, where this could literally collapse overnight. Literally collapse overnight, because I served on behalf of Mr. Trump in the state of New York. right? I served both the Supreme Court of the state of New York as well as also the Attorney General of the state of New York. I didn't do that because of political reasons. I did that because he has the power to be able to bring me to a press conference here with 30 million people would instantly, overnight, be behind this instantly, right? Because he had something illegal happen to him, which is the same thing that happened to millions of you out there. The exact same issue of the indictment by a grand jury issue happened to him in the state of New York. And if he wanted to, I've already served on his behalf to the state. If he heard about this, guess what? We could void his judgment, and whatever the people of the United States wants to do with the election, that's irrelevant. But we could void his judgment by him simply stepping up and saying, I like what that guy's saying right there. I like what he's saying because that's the truth. That's some real shit right there. It's already been served. And so as a result, he could take me and he could put me into a press conference right here. And tomorrow we could have 30 million people behind this. And that would be the difference between not being heard today and tomorrow we overcome this whole system. That's option number one. Option number two is God takes it under control. And he says, you know what? These videos that I have out there, there's a number of videos that are excellent videos. And I know that a lot of you guys are watching them and loving them. Any one of those videos could instantly go viral. And we could get, 2-4 million views on it. And all of a sudden the information is out because the information is that good. It affects that many people that's a second option for a real and legitimate option for this actually being able to move forward. Option number three is remember, I went around the country between May and September, and I served 33 state attorney generals and 33 state Supreme Courts with criminal affidavits of criminal acts that are being committed by their own agents. Right? I have video of it. I have witnesses. I have every single thing that I need to be able to prove that I did this and that it's done. And as a result, any one of these news agencies, even a small news agency, even a local DC news could say, well, let's go ahead and have a conversation with him. Let's see what he actually did. And guess what happens then? By that discussion, this would blow up. Because the moment that this goes public, whether it's local public, national public, it doesn't matter. Those legislators, they will have to get behind this. Those legislators that are out there right now campaigning for re-election, every single one of them would have to get behind this because none of them are going to get reelected if any of them say, oh, well, we're not going to follow that because we don't want to follow the Constitution. They're not going to win the re-election. So with the election cycle, we have a ton of pressure as well to make this happen. So we have three very, very real, very legitimate possibilities for pathway to bringing this about. I mean, it could happen. It could happen overnight, any moment. And like I said, God wouldn't have brought me to this point with everything that's been done, building this case behind the scenes and getting us to this point just to let us all fail because this is the right thing to do. And God would absolutely want this to happen. I know it.
Okay. So brother, we're on the hour of this live. I just wanted to put it out there that for those of you in your city and know where to find these homeless vets, I would encourage you to go out and have a conversation with them.
I'm gonna wipe off my sweat here, guy. 1 second here.
That's fine. Go out and have a conversation with them and talk to them about what we're doing and see if they, would be willing to become a coordinator, right?
So there's also organizations as well, such as the VFW, the Veterans of Foreign Wars. If you guys are members of them, there's organizations such as that. They have lists of local veterans. So, each one of you could also help us. But yeah, I mean, we don't necessarily even have to go out because there's a lot of this infrastructure that's already in place with these organizations. The VFW is a great example. So if you're a member of that, you can reach out to your local VFW and, set up a conference call, a meeting with me. I could explain what's going on and we can see if they're willing to support. I know what they will. You know what they will. Because this is the right thing to do. Fighting for the Constitution, fighting for America, you can never go wrong doing that. But yeah, I mean, we need to find and identify one person immediately right now in every single state that is able to take the lead within that state to start collecting this evidence.
Absolutely. It's very important that we get this evidence and, because the day is coming close where he will be walking through those doors of the Supreme Court, and to have all of that evidence as a trail following behind him be monumental.
Yeah,
So
and there's a good possibility that they'll concede. That's what I would really want. That's the least destructive way to do this, right? I mean, bringing this into actual the point where we have to start presenting this evidence. That would be a much more difficult position for them to be in. What I want is I want the court to act honorable. I want one of their justices to actually step up and say, you know what, he's right. We need to do this. We need to just go ahead and concede now. The gig's up. We're going to be exposed anyway for our lies. And so, whether you meant to do it, whether you knew about it, I don't care at this point in time. All that I want you guys to do. What's that, guys? I got to do a little puzzle here. Hang on. Okay, so I want the court to step up, and I want them to do the honorable thing. Honorable men honor the law. That was Justice Hugo Black that stated that in 1960. These men are not honorable, right? They need a refresher course in ethics, unfortunately. And so, if they want to be honorable, then they're going to step up and they're going to do the honorable thing. And if they don't, then we're going to call them out for the criminals that they are. But I would much rather work together. I would much rather have us all on the same side. I want them to step to the middle ground and accept the fact, just like Plato said in his book, The Republic. When you talk about the origin of justice, you see, justice is neither good nor bad. It's actually a compromise between two evils, because it's evil to commit injustice and it's evil to suffer injustice. They're both evil. And the reason why it's evil to commit injustice is because if you repay evil with evil, right? If I say to you, okay, I'm now going to punish you and imprison and enslave you for the things that you've done, then I am repaying evil with evil, right? And if I'm creating evil, then I myself am evil, right? Because only evil can create evil. Good is incapable of such an act. Therefore, just as Plato said, good and bad are both evil. They are both evil. But it takes the bad to show good what they actually are, right? If good is evil, it requires bad to show that good is evil. So justice is neither good nor bad. It's actually a compromise between two evils. Because what Plato says in the book, The Republic, he says that it goes like this, that one day a person accuses another wrongdoing. That's evil, right? It's committing injustice. And then another person then suffers for the evil that he brought into the world. And then he decides, well, I'm going to accuse someone else of their wrongdoing. And so he's committing evil. And now we have this evil. It keeps going back and forth, back and forth. That's this vengeance-based system we have in place today, where nothing is actually settled because no one's taking on the ability to say, you know what, let's just settle it. Let's just be done with this. And so, as Plato said, it goes back and forth. It goes back and forth. One accusing another wrongdoing, the other suffering of wrongdoing. And eventually they say, you know what? It's better that we don't have either one of these, right? It's better that we do something different. So what true justice is it is one side stepping to the center ground and saying, you know what? We're going to give you guys the opportunity to return to established rule of law. We're going to give you the opportunity to stop committing your injustice, come to our level. And guess what? Once we get to that point, all men are going to be at an equal level, right? Because what happened was when we created our country 243 years ago, we didn't have all men at an equal level. We created a nation where all men were equal, and yet our forefathers and founders, they refused to give up their property, which created a criminal a system that has the ability to perpetually discriminate. We have discrimination built into it because we have the establishment of classes in a nation that doesn't permit the establishment of classes. And so as a result, the whole thing that we believe in, everything we believe in is wrong, and we've been led toward dissolution to this point. So, the true reality is that true justice will not come until we get them to accept their criminality and decide to meet us on level ground. Come down to our level, and let's all of us obey the law from day one together. We start our country over. We move forward as a nation of equality as opposed to a nation of discrimination.
there's a lot of that's questions here. Um, Trying to see, there's not many questions. That's character interviews.
Well, I'd like to do another one in the evening here at in another hour or so. So maybe we could wrap this one up and I come back on maybe around 7, I think. Get out of the sun for a moment here.
Okay.
If
Sounds
that's all
good.
right, everybody. Okay. Well, hey guys, thank you so much. And again, it's been an honor. I mean, it's been absolutely my life honor to be able to serve the people of the United States. I did it for a while in ignorance, incorrectly and improperly, but I'm so thankful that God corrected my vision. He got me on the right side, and now I'm able to do the things I'm doing. Again, like, I will accept being a fool, but I would rather be a fool that believes in us than a fool that just says, well, it is what it is, because change will never come from that. We can never expect ourselves to be better if we just simply accept the status quo and accept mediocrity. Guys, we were never meant for that. We were never meant for this. This is so much different than what all of you believe in, what I believe in, what America, all of America believes in, that we have to do something about this, because I'm not going to live in a world that I don't believe in, because that means that I'm living a lie, and I'm not going to live a lie. And I know that all of you don't want to live that lie either. So we can do this. We can do this because the power is in our hands. We don't have to live in a delusion that they create because they want to proliferate a business, or because they want to enslave us, or they want to make money because of their greed, or what. We can live in the world that we create, because we, the people, control our destiny, because we, the people, give the government the power to govern through the consent of the governed. And so we have the right to be able to withdraw our consent the moment that they breach their obligation of complying with the terms of the established conduct and constitution and contract that's in place. We created a contract, gave it to our government, permitted our government to be established based upon the terms of that contract. And today, they are clearly operating outside of that contract, which was a breach of constitutional obligation, a breach of contract. And by their breach, we no longer have the obligation to comply with obedience because of their breach of contract. Remember, they are the breacher. We are the breached party. The party that we have, they're not complying with the terms of the contract. We live in a contract law right now, society. And as a result, they breached the contract. Contract's void. What do we want to do now? So I see something way better for this nation, and I'm going to fight for it until the day that God calls me home, or this army behind me retreats. And I believe that they're about to retreat. Thank you guys so much. God bless, and continue to watch, continue to hold and share. And just I like to say, together we shall be free.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm Dakota Hayamovi. This is Tanawa Downing. Catch us on the next live coming soon. God bless each and every one of you.
Here we grow.
Here we grow.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. God bless.